Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing a fiqh issue that's very relevant to Ramadan. That is the question of how many rak'ah are prayed in the Taraweeh prayer. As we know, there's often a fitna in the masajid over this question, and I think the two most popular positions are that it's either 8 or 20 rak'ah. So today we want to establish what is the correct and authentic and relied upon position of the Hanbali Mathab to answer this question. So I will give you several pieces of evidence, and inshallah this will clarify the issue. First we'll look at the book Muntaha al-Iradat, and al-Futuhi says in al-Muntaha, under the section of the supererogatory prayers, and he says, and at-Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah in Ramadan. The fact that this is such an established position in the madhab is apparent by the fact that Ibn Qaid al-Najdi doesn't even comment on this point in his hashiyah of al-Muntaha. Next, we can look at al-Iqna. Al-Hajawi says in al-Iqna, referring to at-Taraweeh, it's 20 rak'ah in Ramadan. Al-Buhuti says in his sharh or explanation of al-Iqna, which is Kashaf al-Qina', as was narrated by Malik bin Yazid ibn Roman, who said, the people would observe, meaning at-Taraweeh, in the time of Umar with 23 rak'ah. And just to quickly clarify, the 23 is referring to 20 rak'ah of at-Taraweeh and 3 of al-Witr. He goes on, the secret is that it was organized as 10 rak'ah, but people were weakened in Ramadan, as it was a time of physical exertion. This occurred in public in the presence of the Sahaba, so it's as if it was ijma'. As we know, when al-Muntaha and al-Iqna' agree, this is considered the relied upon position, the mu'tamid position of the madhab. But in case you want still further evidence that this is the position of the muta'akhirin, or the later phase of the madhab, which is the relied upon position of the madhab, we can also look at the book Ghayat al-Muntaha, where Sheikh Mar'i al-Karmi says in al-Ghaya, its meaning at-Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah in Ramadan, and there's no harm in making it more. So the three biggest shuyukh of the muta'akhirin all agree that Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah. Next, we can look at some books of the mutawassitin, or the middle phase scholars of the madhab, in case we're still having doubts. So if we look in the book Umdat al-Fiqh by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qudama, where he says regarding the supererogatory prayers that they are what is sunnah to be prayed in congregation, and they are of 3 kinds. The first of them is at-Taraweeh, and it's 20 rak'ah after al-Isha in Ramadan. We can also look at what his student Biha'uddin Abdurrahman al-Maqdisi says in al-Udda, which is the explanation of al-Umda, where he says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed it, meaning at-Taraweeh, with the Sahaba 3 times, but abandoned doing so out of fear of it becoming understood as obligatory. So the people prayed by themselves until Umar radiallahu anhu went out and found them in groups. So he gathered them under Ubay bin Ka'b. As-Sa'ab bin Zayd said, when Umar gathered the people together under Ubay bin Ka'b, he led them in prayer for 20 raka'. It's sunnah to do it in congregation. Likewise, al-Bukhari has brought forth the narration. And al-Bukhari mentioned the same narration on the authority of Abdurrahman al-Qari, and that can be seen in his Sahih. We can also look at the book al-Muharrar, which is by Majd ibn Taymiyyah. And of course, Ibn Qudama and Majd ibn Taymiyyah are known as the two sheikhs of the Mathab. So when they agree, this is definitely a correct position in the Mathab. Majd mentioned in his book Al-Muharrar, the sunnah of al-Taraweeh is 20 raka'. So we see also Majd and Ibn Qudama in agreement about the 20 raka'. If we want to look at further evidence from the Mutawassitin or middle phase scholars period, we can look at what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said. And of course, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah is Majd ibn Taymiyyah's grandson. So Shaykh al-Islam Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah, he wrote explanations for his grandfather's book Al-Muharrar and for Ibn Qudama's book Al-Umdah. Unfortunately, we've lost his sharh for Al-Muharrar, and he doesn't seem to address it in Al-Umdah, meaning the part on the Taraweeh, or perhaps that could be lost in the manuscripts. However, we do have what is mentioned in his Majmu' al-Fatawa, where he said, verily, it has been proven that Umar made Ubay ibn Ka'b lead the people in 20 raka' of Taraweeh and 3 witr in Ramadan. This is the way of the scholars of this ummah, and this is the sunnah. This is due to the fact that Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b read 20 raka' of Taraweeh in a large congregation of the Muhajireen and Ansar, of the Sahaba, and none of them objected to this practice. So concentrate on what Shaykh al-Islam said. He said, this is the way of the scholars of this ummah, and this is the sunnah. And when it comes to calling things the sunnah, we know Shaykh al-Islam is very critical in defining that. So the fact that he calls it the sunnah is also a very weighty piece of evidence. If we're still having doubts, we can look at the book Al-Furu', which is written by Ibn Muflih, who was one of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's students, some say his best student. And in Al-Furu' he says, it's sunnah to perform a Taraweeh in Ramadan, and it's 20 raka'. So Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah is in agreement with his grandfather Majd ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qudama, as well as his student Ibn Muflih is also in agreement with them. I think the final piece of evidence we'll look at is Al-Mughni by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Qudama. And we will look at what's mentioned here just to address any delusions that some people may have that the opinion of al-Imam Ahmed is not being represented correctly in the Mathab. So Ibn Qudama said in Al-Mughni, the chosen position of Abi Abdullah, and this is the kunya for al-Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah, is that it's 20 raka'. And that was what was said by Athawri, Abu Hanifa, and Ash-Shafi'i. Ibn Qudama goes on to mention the narrations regarding about what Umar and Ubay ibn Ka'ab did on the authority of Asab bin Zayd and Zayd bin Roman, as well as another narration mentioning that Ali radiallahu anhu ordered a man to lead them in prayer in Ramadan with 20 rak'ah. Ibn Qudama concluded, and this is as ijma'. So in conclusion, Al-Hajawi and Al-Futuhi agree that a Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah. And when they agree, this is defined as the mu'tamad position in the Mathab. Mar'i al-Karmi agrees with them. We also saw that the two great sheikhs, Ibn Qudama and Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah, Imams of the Mathab of the Mutawassitin or middle phase, also both relate that a Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah. We also saw that Shaykh al-Islam Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah narrated the same opinion of his grandfather Al-Majd and that of Ibn Qudama. Likewise does his student Ibn Muflih. We saw that numerous narrations related that Umar radiallahu anhu re-established the congregational Taraweeh prayer, and it was prayed as 20 rak'ah in public and in the presence of the Sahaba. Al-Imam Ali radiallahu anhu also ordered it to be prayed as 20 rak'ah. We saw that Ibn Qudama and Al-Buhuti described the evidence as ijma' of the Sahaba. Finally, we saw that Al-Imam Ahmed radiallahu anhu likewise had the opinion that a Taraweeh is 20 rak'ah. So inshallah, this is extensive and decisive evidence of what is the correct position in the Hanbali Mathab regarding the number of raka'ah that a Taraweeh prayer is. Now, as I said in the beginning, we do know that there's been fitna over this issue in the masajid. And I'm not presenting this evidence here so that you go and get into further debates and arguments that will only bring further fitna. But rather, if the person leading you in prayer in the masjid is someone that you believe would be receptive to the evidence, then yes, please give them the evidence. Otherwise, avoid making fitna and disputation in the masjid. In case you are praying in a masjid where they only pray 8 rak'ah, then you have other options, including praying the additional rak'ah at home so that you yourself at least can meet the 20 rak'ah. Or if you are the one leading others in prayer, inshallah, you can follow the correct position of the madhab, the position that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, this is the way of the scholars of this ummah, and this is the sunnah. And this is the position, as we said, Ibn Qudama and Al-Buhuti called it as an ijma' of the Sahaba. So, inshallah, I hope this has been beneficial lesson on the correct position of the number of raka in a Taraweeh prayer. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.